Trump attorney Jesse Binnall and former federal prosecutor Doug Burns. Jesse, you've been with Trump working on some of this stuff from day one, and it is remarkably stupid that we have to have this conversation. But how fast does this get overturned on appeal?
Well, it should be overturned immediately on appeal because, as you've pointed out through your monologue, there was never any due process through anything that we saw here. Let's remember that not only did you have a judge who had donated to Joe Biden and still refused to recuse himself. Even, it doesn't matter how much, it could have been 1 penny. Yet by donating to Joe Biden, he showed his political allegiances. And the fact that his daughter was making perhaps millions of dollars based on his rulings here. And then you have the fact that it didn't even have a unanimous verdict, didn't require a unanimous verdict when it came to the jury in this case. There is a number of reasons why the Court of Appeal or the Appellate Division in New York should immediately reverse this decision. Now, in New York, it's probably going to take some time. But I think the real issue here, Carl, is that, as you pointed out, the American people saw right through this. But political actors like Juan Merchan have not learned their lesson, have not learned that this political lawfare against Donald Trump has backfired on them, and they're not going to knock it off. I think they showed by their actions today that they want to keep going, and there has to be accountability. That's what we learned today, is that the left, if we just try to turn the other cheek, the one thing we know is that the left will continue to try to use lawfare to go after conservatives, because at the end of the day, what you tolerate, you endorse. And if we see these violations of civil rights under color of law, which this is, if we allow that to continue, then nothing's going to change at all. So we have to have accountability.
Yeah, no, burn it down comes to mind. But Doug, you've been sitting here at Newsmax covering every aspect of this from day one. This judge ordered the jury to ignore certain things, accept other things from Bragg that normally wouldn't be allowed in court. I mean, like, any semblance of normalcy in any court should throw this out.
Well, your overview covered all the main points, seriously, as you went through it. The point is, this was a misdemeanor case at its absolute best. And even on the misdemeanor statute, real quick, and Jesse and I have discussed this in segments, you have to have an intent to defraud in addition to just filing a false document. As you said in your monologue, a lawyer made a payment, they reimburse a lawyer, and they mark it as legal expenses. That's the big crime of the century we're talking about. And then just fast forward to today. I was lectured, Carl, left and right, that this was the most consequential criminal case in my lifetime, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody pompously lecturing me. And now he gets an unconditional discharge. Just for the viewers, I've never seen an unconditional discharge in a felony trial conviction case. This case was a disgrace from the get-go. And don't forget, the U.S. attorney declined it. Cyrus Vance declined it. Bragg himself, Carl, declined this case, okay? And only when Matt Colangelo rolled into town, Associate Attorney General. Little personal note, my late father, Arnold Burns, was Associate Attorney General in the Reagan administration. Dad, I'd like you to consider becoming an ADA in Manhattan. You know what he would have said to me? Doug, what are you on, drugs?
But Jesse, the other thing which is just absolutely bananas to me is during this whole case, there was so many issues with this gag order where Trump wasn't allowed to defend himself. Every day he'd come to the microphones, but there were certain things he wasn't allowed to say. I'm not a lawyer, but I went to war for my constitutional rights. I would have told that judge to pound sand, throw me in jail, see what happens.
Yeah, that's a great point. The founders, when they drafted the First Amendment, the most important thing that they were concerned about was prior restraints on speech, injunctions against speech, and that is a gag order. And in fact, the Supreme Court has taken that so seriously, they've said that the New York Times and the Washington Post can publish classified information.
Pentagon Papers.
U.S. soldiers in jeopardy, and you can't have a prior restraint and injunction stopping them from speech. And yet that's exactly what the New York court system allowed to happen here. It's a disgrace. It's one of the biggest affronts to the First Amendment we've ever seen, and the biggest crime at all.